has ended the day down 12 points at 74.89, the pound buying $1.25 and €1.12. Lbc Weather. After the intense heat, widespread thunderstorms are now expected across northern and eastern parts of the UK through tonight. Drier elsewhere, a low of 15. Tomorrow, another very hot day, but with more heavy rain for central and eastern England, a high of 28 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Lisa Aziz.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, Boris Johnson's first day in the House of Commons at the dispatch box. Let's listen to Boris speaking. And I wonder, there's a phrase or two here. I wonder whether you can think of a world leader that might have uttered similar phrases. Here's Boris.
Our mission is to deliver Brexit on the 31st of October for the purpose of uniting and re-energising our great United Kingdom and making this country the greatest place on earth. And when I say the greatest place on earth, I'm conscious that some may accuse me of hyperbole. But it is useful to imagine the trajectory on which we could now be embarked. By 2050, it is more than possible that the United Kingdom will be the greatest and most prosperous economy in Europe, at the centre of a new network of trade deals, which we have pioneered.
Well, the greatest place on earth. He said it twice. A British Prime Minister saying that. Now, where have we heard that before? Oh, yeah.
I just want to tell you that America is the greatest place on earth.
There we are.
The greatest place on earth. Thank you very much.
Well, President Trump saying America's the greatest place on earth is no surprise to anybody, but that's what Boris wants to make us. And of course, President Trump actually does see a bit of himself in Boris Johnson.
Really good man is going to be the Prime Minister of the UK now, Boris Johnson. Good man. He's tough and he's smart. They're saying Britain Trump. They call him Britain Trump, and people are saying that's a good thing. That they like me over there. That's what they wanted. That's what they need. That's what they need. He'll get it done. Boris is good. He's going to do a good job.
Well, there you are. And even Jeremy Corbyn today at Backbox drawing that comparison between Trump and Boris Johnson.
Mr. Speaker, I note the climate change denying US President has already labelled him Britain's Trump and welcomed his commitment to work with Nigel Farage. Could Britain Trump take this opportunity to rule out once and for all that our NHS is not going to be part of any trade deal with President Trump and the USA?
So when you hear Trump say,
America is the greatest place on earth,
and when you hear Boris say,
making this country the greatest place on earth.
Do you see Boris as Britain's version of Trump? Well, I have to say that in style, something quite remarkable has happened to Boris Johnson. Boris, for all his abilities, I've never seen him as actually being a very good, together public speaker, but he has been over the course of the last few days. And he's taken a very Trumpian style. It's out there, the chest's out. We're going to be the greatest place on earth. He's gone for the full-on positivity. Oh, and what a wonderful contrast that is to 3 years of Mrs May. I mean, whether you agree with Boris or not, just to hear a bit of positivity is a good thing. With his appointments, no hanging around, people appointed, they're out there, and some of them people with strong opinions. And I think in many ways, I think Boris Johnson has actually modelled himself on the way that Trump has done things as the US president. Now, in terms of comparisons, there are big differences between the two men. Trump is very instinctive, very decisive. He looks at something, makes his mind up and says, yep or no. Boris doesn't do that. In fact, Boris, in many ways, is quite slow to make decisions, dithers a bit, generally tends to refer, back to officials. So there's a difference there. And I guess in terms of rhetoric, Trump is the least PC leader in the Western world. Boris is generally more careful, although, remember, not long ago, he did say that when he saw women wearing the burqa in the streets of London, he thought they resembled letterboxes. Perhaps even in terms of rhetorical style, Boris is getting a bit like Trump. So to me, they're very different people. But I do think that Boris Johnson is trying to be Britain's version of Trump. And if you agree with me, call 0345 6060973. If you disagree with me, text to 84850 and tell me, if Boris is using some of Trump's rhetoric, is there anything wrong with that? Please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC, and of course, all of you out there on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, you can comment too. Let's go to Kevin, who's a brand new caller to the show, who lives in... Kevin, good evening to you.
Good evening, Nigel. I hear what you've been saying about him copying, or seemingly copying, Trump. But there's going to be times when, in the situation that we're in, which is a totally unknown territory for everybody, including us, the electorate out here, as to what's going on. And I think sometimes issues like this, personalities and that, can cloud the real issues, which are there day by day, and even today, with the European Parliament coming back again, trying to knock Boris back with his speech in Parliament today. Yes, there are similarities in his, as you said, in the last week. He has been coming across with this bolder style, which you could say that is Trump-like in style. But I think that's where the differences stop. I think he's in unknown territory. He's doing his best with what he's got, which is an awful lot to live up to, with what's on his plate.
But he's made some big promises, hasn't he?
Issues are really being taken into consideration. The figures out today on the statistics, or yesterday on statistics on your EU trade. These are the things that we should be talking about. What are we actually getting from the EU? Have we not got a 69 billion deficit, which is not doing this country any good, whilst other European countries are enjoying surpluses?
Sure, but Kevin, that's that's the argument about that leavers like you will use.
Well,
but in terms of leadership style, all right, I've seen Margaret Thatcher stand up and say, "This is where we're going. Come and join me." I've seen Tony Blair. Very similarly stand up and say, and what I'm saying is, there's nothing brand new in this, but Trump has kind of brought a different style of leadership back into Western politics, and I think Boris has to some extent copied him.
I take in what you say. You can't help but correlate the two immediate styles, not the Boris that we know along the pathway he's come, but I think he's unknown territory.
No, I get that.
Desperate to pull any strings he can to deliver on anything, and that includes his speeches and everything he's coming across with. I'm just looking at, I just happened to come across, because I've been looking at the statistics on the EU trade. I've also been looking back on...
Kevin, lovely. We'll discuss EU trade. Not now. I'm going to move on. Congratulations, Prime Minister Johnson. Make Britain great again. Goodness me, before you know it, Boris will turn up wearing a baseball cap with Make Britain Great Again written on it. That's his direction of travel. At least I think so. Lawrence from Colchester is an old caller. Lawrence, good evening to you.
How you doing, Sir Nigel?
Welcome back. So, no. There's no. I can assure you, Lawrence, I'm a long way away from getting any honours like that.
Well, you should be the next Prime Minister, mate. That's for sure. That's what the people want. Nigel,
Boris Johnson is the Prime Minister, Lawrence, and you could argue that everything Boris has said in the last 3 days is pretty much what I was saying in the European elections. But that's a good thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. It is, but will he deliver it? No.
Wow.
He's going to... The last 24 hours for me, I'm glad she's gone, by the way, the Wicked Witch of the West, and the rest of the
Don't kick her while she's down. She's gone.
Oh, she kicked herself, Nigel. No one had to kick her. Anyway, that's gone now. That's history.
Yeah.
I don't trust Boris as far as I could throw him. I want an election, and I'll be voting Brexit.
Lawrence, you may get an election because, look, Boris has said we are leaving on the 31st of October.
No, we won't. It'll be tweeted. He's going to tweet the deal that May put forward.
Wow. Lawrence, if we don't leave on the 31st of October, and there's no prospect of us leaving, then Boris Johnson will become the most disastrous Prime Minister and probably the shortest term Prime Minister we've ever seen. He's got that pressure upon him. But do you think he'll fail because of Parliament, or do you think he'll fail because he won't?
He will fail because of Parliament.
And that's why he'll call an election. In terms of style, Lawrence, do you think he's modelling himself on the US president?
And it's pretty sad, really, because he's not even the quarter of the man that Trump is.
Isn't he?
No.
Well, he was an Oxford scholar. He's a very distinct fellow.
He's trying to keep the people that want to vote for the Brexit Party happy.
Yes.
He wants to give them the words that they want to hear.
Lawrence, you are absolutely right. This is Operation Get Farage's Voters Back on Side, and that's what they're trying to do at the moment. And we'll see. I wish them well. I hope Boris succeeds. I hope we leave on the 31st of October. But if we don't, there'll be a hell of a political price to pay. Lawrence, thank you. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:15, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
The European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker has congratulated Boris Johnson on his appointment as Prime Minister, but reiterated the current Brexit deal is the best and only one possible, despite his demands for it to be changed. 4 teenage boys have been charged with a hate crime after a suspected homophobic attack on 2 women on a night bus in North London. And as Britain bakes on its second hottest day ever, there are major problems for people trying to get home this evening. Many train lines have speed restrictions and there's severe disruption at Liverpool Street and also London Euston. Lbc Weather. After the intense heat, widespread thunderstorms are now expected across northern and eastern areas of the UK through tonight. Drier elsewhere, a low of 15 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Katie Tyler. Major problems on the trains this evening because of the hot weather, with most train lines running a reduced service. There is severe disruption to departures at Euston Station, with many services being cancelled. Greater Anglia have cancelled all services between Liverpool Street and Cambridge, and the Stansted Express is also suspended. There's no service on London North Eastern Railway between Peterborough and King's Cross. On the roads in Norfolk, the A11 stays closed northbound between Spooner Row and Wymondham because the tarmac is melting. And in Greater Manchester, there are queues on the M60 clockwise approaching Junction 9 for Trafford Park after an accident.
LBC.
Conventional attitudes. Majority opinion. Everyday compromise. Now, you can leave it all behind. Way behind. Jaguar approved used, winner of What Car Best Used Car Scheme 2 years running. Stay away from the middle of the road. Search Jaguar approved. Jaguar, the art of performance.
This is LBC.
LBC, along with Lloyds Bank, the people behind the M word, are encouraging couples to talk about money together and discussing why money is the ultimate British taboo.
Recognising there's a problem in the first place is your starting point, and so that's often associated with suddenly there's more tension when you're wanting to spend money or get something, and you start noticing some of the signs are building up.
Head to lbc.co.uk for details on the M word from Lloyds Bank, making those conversations about money easier. LBC.
You know their names. Now, find out who they are. Listen to Full Disclosure with James O'Brien, an insightful podcast featuring rare, candid conversations with the biggest names in politics, entertainment, and sport. And while James gives you a look into their lives, keep an eye on yours with Blink, wireless home security cameras you can monitor on your smartphone. Full Disclosure with James O'Brien. New episodes every Monday, thanks to Blink Home Security Cameras.
Business like a boss with a new mobile plan from 3. All the usual stuff you could get from a phone contract like unlimited data, plus 6 months of exclusive benefits from our partners. Spend less time accounting and more time businessing with FreshBooks. Build a website designed to work perfectly on a mobile with Wix. Get a receptionist that's not your nan at WeWork. And nothing says I've got this like a business card from Moo. Get the mobile plan that actually helps your business, because 3 means business. Search 3.co.uk/business for further details.
William, Pamela and Anthony were sold investments by banks and ended up losing money. Luckily, they contacted the financial claims experts at Goodwin Barrett and were able to claim back a total of £65,500. At Goodwin Barrett, we may be able to help you too. If you've lost money on an investment sold by a bank, even if you no longer have the investment or the paperwork, just text GOOD to 60777 for a free assessment on how much you could be owed. Text GOOD to 60777 and we'll call you back.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show, live from New York. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Is Boris Johnson the British version of Donald Trump? Is he putting himself on the US president? Well, certainly. His words have been noted by Michel Barnier, the European Union's chief negotiator, who, watching Boris in the House of Commons today, has written a letter to European leaders, and Barnier has urged them to remain calm, to stick to their principles and guidelines, and to show solidarity and unity in response to what he called Johnson's rather combative first speech in the House of Commons. Barnier also declared as unacceptable Johnson's insistence on eliminating the backstop provision on the Irish border that was part, of course, of the withdrawal agreement. So you could read that two ways. You could read it that Barnier is rattled that we have a Prime Minister who is now talking about no deal and perhaps even meaning it, unlike Miss May, who said it to get people to vote for her, but never, ever put it on the table when she was there in Brussels. Or do you read it that actually Barnier isn't going to give Johnson an inch? And I tell you, my view, I don't think they'll give Johnson anything other than small cosmetic changes, and that means he will not be able to get a version of that awful withdrawal agreement through the House of Commons before the 31st of October. It is also my view that it's utterly impossible to get a WTO Brexit through the House of Commons, just given the numbers and the way that MPs feel. Mark my words, there is a general election coming. And if you look at some of the people that Johnson has placed inside number 10 to work for him, they're the kinds of people who do work on elections rather perhaps than being inside an office for year after year after year. That's my view. Now, back to, let's listen to a little clip of President Trump.
America is the greatest place on earth.
And here is Prime Minister Johnson.
Making this country the greatest place on earth.
Well, it's a slam dunk, isn't it? It's obvious. Johnson is modelling himself on the president, and as I say, within days, he'll be wearing baseball caps saying, "Make Britain great again." I can spot it a mile off. I wonder whether Clive in Fife from Eastern Scotland agrees with me. Good evening, Clive.
Good evening, Farage. I think you sound a bit jealous, Nigel. You know, I think you're a bit petulant child. I think...
Oh, right. Why is that? Why is that, Clive?
Well, now that your pal, the Trumpenstein, is bigging up Bojo, you know, I think you sound a bit jealous now, Nigel, you know. But I'll tell you one thing.
Clive, I really don't quite get this, but I mean...
you sound a bit jealous, Nigel. You sound a bit upset that your friend, Mr. Trump, is bigging up Bojo, you know. And he's still playing his introduction at the start of every show, Nigel.
He's been bigging up Bojo for a very, very long time. I'm asking you,
Nigel,
Clive,
you can't hide it. I think you're a bit hurt.
Well, I'm not Prime Minister, Clive. Do you think I'm upset that I'm not Prime Minister?
I think you're a bit upset that your friend, Mr. Trump, is bigging up Bojo, you know, and ignoring you a little bit, you know. Are you in New York right now, Nigel?
Did you watch the news earlier on this week, Clive? Did you see what the President said about me earlier on this week?
Yeah, I've seen that embarrassment when he was addressing all these school kids, and he was looking for you in the audience. Why were you in the audience then, Nigel?
Because I tell you why, Clive, because there's an organisation called Turning Point, which is for students who can club together and not be bullied by professors and academics who don't allow any conservative thought opinion, and it's a huge,
I get it now then,
and it's
right.
a huge success here in America, and we're opening it up in the United Kingdom. You see, Clive, do you have anything constructive to say at all?
I've got one thing constructive to say to you, Nigel. I think you should take this as a compliment, right? You, Mr. Trump and Mr. Johnson have one thing in common. None of you are welcome in Scotland, and we don't want anything to do with you. No, you're not. I'll see you in Dundee on the 12th
Is that because two of us are English? Is that because two of us are English? Are English people not welcome in Scotland? Oh, really?
It's to do. You accused me of this the last time we spoke, Nigel, being anti-English, and then you cut me off for granted.
Yes. Well, I think you are very anti-English, aren't you?
I'm anti-right-wing Westminster rule. That's what I am anti.
So do you think I should be barred from going north of Hadrian's Wall, Clive? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm anti-little Englanders coming to Scotland and trying to tell us what we should be doing and when we can have our independence. You're yesterday's man, and I'll see you in Dundee on the 12th of September.
Yes, I'm coming up to Scotland. Yes, I mean, even though you've banned me, I shall look forward to seeing you, Clive. No doubt you'll be Clive will be demonstrating outside, but hey. Well, wasn't that nice? Let's try a different vein. Let's go to Richmond and speak to Peter. Hello, Peter.
Yes, hello, Nigel. How are you?
Well, now, is he modelling himself on Trump or not?
I promise to be less combative than Clive, first of all.
Okay.
Well, to an extent, perhaps he does, but that wasn't really my point. My real point regarding Trump and Johnson is that I don't think, if it wasn't for the fact that Trump had paved the way for an unorthodox politician, somebody who sort of is willing to sort of make gaffes and make comments that aren't universally accepted as PC. I think if it wasn't for Trump paving the way, I don't think Johnson would have got enough of members of Parliament to even get him into the contest in the first place. I think the members of Parliament, apart from the Brexit Party, which put the fear of God into them, I think apart from that, they also saw that that Trump was electable. That a gaffe is not the end of the world for a politician, and I think in that respect he owes Trump a debt of gratitude.
Well, I think you're right. I think Trump has sort of reshaped politics in the Western world. As you say, we now want leaders who may get some things wrong, may have the odd gaffe, but at least they're unafraid to speak their mind. And isn't that a marked contrast to what we've had for the last 3 years?
Very much so, where we had a robotic character, and you could read the lines off before she actually said them.
Yeah.
So
great.
So I think
you're absolutely right. It's maybe not so much that he's modelling himself on Trump, it's that Trump has changed the agenda, changed the type of leader that people are prepared to accept. Peter, thank you for your call. Go on, Boris, I get. Stick to Trump lines is a smart move. We like it. We love it. We love Boris being our version of the great President Donald J. Trump. The doomsters are hating this. Nigel, I think Boris is more of a Churchill, says Mark in Sunderland. This is a honeymoon period, isn't it? Boris is not Trump. He is better educated, erudite, funny and civilised. This is far left propaganda to destroy him, says Gina. Well, Gina, I tell you what, Gina, let's just have a listen. If you think this is completely wrong, let's hear President Trump.
America is the greatest place on earth.
And let's hear Prime Minister Johnson.
Making this country the greatest place on earth.
Well, I think it's pretty unavoidable to say, isn't it, that there are big similarities. Boris has looked at the way Trump is doing things. He's looked at this positivity. He's looked at this big out there. We're going to do this. We're going to be this place on earth. To say that he's not copied him, I think, would be ludicrous. Sandra is a new caller from Carlisle. Good evening, Sandra.
Good evening, Nigel. No, I'm not a new caller. I've spoken to you before about chickens.
Chickens? Oh, gosh, right. I don't remember. I apologise. Sandra, is Boris behaving like Trump, and is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think he's Trumpish. I don't think he's anywhere near Donald Trump. I watched Parliament this afternoon, and he was quite positive, but I still don't trust him. I think he'll try and fiddle the withdrawal agreement which is would be an absolute nightmare. What I would like to say was I was actually quite impressed with Rees-Mogg. You would have thought he'd been doing that job all his life. But I don't know.
Sandra, in a few minutes' time, I'm going to play you some clips of Jacob Rees-Mogg at the dispatch box. And so you were seriously impressed by him, yeah?
Oh, yes. Very much.
Good. And do you think, let me ask you, Sandra, is Boris going to deliver Brexit by the 31st of October?
Doubtful, but if he does, I hope that the Brexit Party will still campaign to get into Parliament afterwards, because we need to get rid of all these career politicians and get real people in.
Well, that's a sentiment that is shared by many people. Thank you very much indeed for your call. Linda says to me on Facebook, you have to give Boris a chance. After all, he's only just walked in. Linda, I am giving him a chance. I'm actually wishing, well, I hope he succeeds. I just think it's going to be difficult, and I'm used to Conservative leaders making big promises and then not delivering. Mick watched all of PMQs this afternoon, the best and most passionate in a long time. Well, after what we've been through, after 3 miserable years of Theresa, anything would have been better. And it's upbeat, it's positive, he's going to make us the greatest place on earth. It's very, very Trumpian. That's my view. In a moment, we will have a listen to Jacob Rees-Mogg. But it's 6:30 and it's time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
The European Commission presidents told the Prime Minister in a phone call this afternoon the current Brexit deal remains the only one available, despite his demands for Brussels to change it. Jean-Claude Juncker has congratulated Boris Johnson on his new appointment, but reiterated the bloc's position on the withdrawal agreement. 4 teenage boys have been charged with a hate crime after a suspected homophobic attack on 2 women on a night bus in North London. The couple say they were targeted after refusing to kiss on the double-decker in Camden in May. Commuters are facing major disruption on the railways as the UK swelters on its hottest July day on record today. There's severe disruption still at Liverpool Street, King's Cross, London Euston and St Pancras International because of overhead wire failures. LBC Weather: after the intense heat, widespread thunderstorms are expected across northern and eastern areas of the UK through tonight. Should be drier elsewhere with a low of 15 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
US Ambassador to the United Kingdom, Woody Johnson. I wonder what you might have said in emails or cables or messages to President Trump about Prime Minister May or incoming Prime Minister Johnson. How correct, appropriate is it that ambassadors use that kind of language? Do you?
I think when you describe problems, it's better to stick to the problem.
You might have written a disparagement about the situation, but not about the personnel.
I try to limit myself to the situation.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero, get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
From the early scientists who discovered the power of electricity to the modern-day innovators who've revolutionized the way we work, play and communicate, it's amazing what we can do when we think beyond limits. That's why Vodafone are giving small businesses the power to unlock their full potential with their unlimited 5G data plan, plus add-ons that keep you online anywhere. Go beyond your limits. For more, and the chance to win £1,000 to put towards your business, go to lbc.co.uk.
Summer's finally here, and at the BMW Summer Event, we're celebrating with a wide range of models available to drive away today, so your perfect BMW couldn't be closer. Search BMW Summer Event or visit your local BMW centre before the end of August to find your perfect BMW and explore our range of tailored finance options. BMW UK Limited is a credit broker, not a lender. BMW Finance is subject to status for UK customers over 18 only. Guarantees may be required. T's and C's apply.
Turn to The Telegraph for clarity as Boris Johnson settles into number 10. Can he turn his now famous eminently feasible into something that's everybody pleasable, with plans on a hard border, a hard bargain or a hard Brexit? Turn to the team who know him best. Subscribe now at telegraph.co.uk.
Business like a boss with a new mobile plan from 3. All the usual stuff you could get from a phone contract like unlimited data, plus 6 months of exclusive benefits from our partners. Spend less time accounting and more time businessing with FreshBooks. Build a website designed to work perfectly on a mobile with Wix. Get a receptionist that's not your nan at WeWork. And nothing says I've got this like a business card from Moo. Get the mobile plan that actually helps your business, because 3 means business. Search 3.co.uk/business for further details.
Imagine, if you can, days that get longer by the minute and warmer by the mile. Imagine, if you can, a horizon that falls further away the closer you draw to it. Now consider looking up. Picture the rotation of a cloudless, infinite sky. And as the sun slinks away into the sea, that same sky becoming bejeweled with stars. Now, turn up the music and dance until dawn. Sail beyond your imagination. The Transatlantic Crossing by Cunard. Discover more at cunard.com. ABTA and ATOL protected.
The Nigel Farage Show, live from New York, only on LBC.
Well, to me, in many ways, Boris Johnson is adopting a very similar style, techniques used by President Trump. Now, one person who is not like President Trump at all, and who is unlikely to change ever in any way, is my fellow LBC presenter, Jacob Rees-Mogg, and he will be here on LBC at 6 p.m. tomorrow. But Jacob, of course, has been promoted by Boris. He's now leader of the House of Commons, and he took today to the dispatch box to cover a number of MPs' questions, including one about the suspension of Parliament in order to get no-deal Brexit, known as prorogation. And here was Jacob's answer.
My right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, has said he views prorogation as an archaic mechanism and does not wish to see archaic mechanisms used, as I am bound...
Very funny.
As I am now bound by collective responsibility, that is now also my view.
Well, he sounded there like he did it, didn't he? And he went on to take a question from Liberal Democrat Tom Brake about the Irish border.
Tom Brake. Speaker, could I really welcome the Leader of the House to his position, because certainly the Liberal Democrats, we couldn't want for a better recruiting sergeant for us than him, as we set up a contest between Victorian values and Liberal Democrat values. But more seriously, could I ask the Leader of the House if he will make time available for the House to discuss his views on Northern Ireland and the checks on the Irish border as we had during the Troubles, as he has articulated, and how the government could keep an eye on the border and an ability to have people inspected, and the impact that this would have on the Good Friday Agreement.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I may be a better recruiting sergeant for the Lib Dems than the honourable gentleman is, but that...
Very good. Very funny.
But I fear that may not be a very difficult task. With regard to Northern Ireland and the border with the Republic of Ireland, the Prime Minister has made clear that there will not be a border imposed by the British government, but he is another fortunate man that there will be Northern Ireland questions on the 11th of September, and he can raise these matters directly with the relevant minister.
Well, that's not a bad answer, is it? I mean, isn't it amazing that somebody of Jacob's clear ability was completely overlooked by Theresa May and never given any promotion of any kind at all? And I've no doubt tomorrow night you can ring at his first day at the dispatch box. Now, Jacob not sounding Trumpian in any way at all, and he's never, ever going to. But Boris, with the blonde hair and the fairly wide-ish girth, to many, looks a little bit like Donald Trump, and certainly today he sounded like Donald Trump. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is the rhetorical approach that Johnson's now taking the right thing and positive, or does it take us in the wrong political direction? John is a new caller from Walthamstow. Good evening, John.
Hi, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. Welcome to the show. So, what do you make of Boris's performance?
Well, look, Boris is an entertainer through and through. I can give him that much. And he's a very well-scripted and experienced public speaker. He definitely has a way with words of keeping people engaged with the content that he delivers. But to compare him to Trump in the way that Trump's rhetoric ultimately alienates people, Boris hasn't had enough time to produce that kind of effect yet in Parliament. Whether the centre ground right members of the Tory party will have something to say when the parliamentary arithmetic ultimately stops him from being able to pass the, as you say, the preconditioned deal that May had already put through, is one way in which you might see whether or not he becomes more Trump-like in his presentation. But my question really about the future of this, you do actually raise the most obvious thing here, which is that we are heading for a general election. His party
I believe so, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, his party is representing essentially a way of stopping your party from taking away the votes. And now that Labour ultimately have decided to alienate 4 million of their voters, there's that opportunity there that they may be swayed to go to the Tories. But my problem with this isn't so much getting Brexit across the line. It's ultimately when that happens and you yourself, Mr. Trump, if he's still in power, and Mr. Johnson, if he is also in power, some form of coalition with you, how can you guarantee the protection of the pharmaceutical industry within the National Health Services? Bearing in mind, it's a £100 billion plus industry, which if you have to negotiate with the Americans as a second trading partner with us as they stand at the moment, second largest trading partner, who are very keen for that kind of privatisation. And you yourself, I believe, with UKIP... I
tell you what, John, we will discuss the health service at length, and already... on that trade deal, Trump has said, well, whether NHS services are in or out, we want to have a debate. But, John, I've got to love you and leave you because I'm off to LBC's political editor, Theo Usherwood, who's got some breaking news from number 10 Downing Street.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson spoke to the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, at 4:45 this afternoon. Now, usually this is just a congratulatory phone call from Mr Juncker to Boris Johnson as a new Prime Minister, but Number 10 have just released a short statement which says actually the phone call went far beyond the usual congratulations, saying that the Prime Minister reiterated on Brexit that he wants a deal and will be energetic in pursuit of finding a way forward. But, he said, the withdrawal agreement has been rejected 3 times by the UK Parliament and will not pass in its current form. The Prime Minister said that if an agreement is to be reached, it must be understood that the way to do a deal goes by way of the abolition of the backstop. The Prime Minister and the President agreed to stay in contact, close quotes. Of course, Number 10 isn't going to be speaking for Mr Juncker himself. There'll be a statement, I'm sure, from the President of the European Commission within the coming hours, maybe in the next couple of days if it drags on. But we already know what Michel Barnier, the chief Brexit negotiator for the Commission, said earlier when he described Boris Johnson's speech as combative. And then he said that the withdrawal agreement was not going to be changed and the backstop as a principle of the withdrawal agreement was going to remain in place. Okay. Tonight, Nigel, it does look as if no deal is much more likely.
Well, I tell you what, you know, the use of the word abolition there from Prime Minister Johnson is a very, very strong word, by far the strongest word. He's not even looking for it to be amended. He wants it abolished. It isn't going to happen. So, no deal increases, but also, Theo, the chances of a general election increase too, don't they?
Of course they increase. We didn't hear a huge amount of dissent in the House of Commons from the so-called Gawkwood squad, the likes of David Gauke, the Justice Secretary. He was at the cricket with Theresa May and Theresa May's former Chief of Staff, Gavin Barwell. Philip Hammond hasn't yet chosen to speak, but you're right to say it does increase the chances of a general election. The problem, though, for the Conservative Remainers, those who don't want to leave without a deal, is are they prepared to vote against the government in a confidence motion to trigger that election? And there's also a problem as well for Labour MPs in Leave constituencies if they are seen to support a general election as a way of stopping a no-deal Brexit from happening on October the 31st. And people like Sarah Champion up in Rotherham, Gareth Snell in Stoke are very, very conscious of this.
Yeah.
Well,
although,
it remains to be seen.
Although, Theo, I mean, it has been Corbyn's policy for some time that a general election was his number one priority.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because today he had the chance to go with the Liberal Democrats and table a motion of no confidence that would be debated on the first day back. And experts who spend time looking at the timetabling and all the Commons procedure say that actually today was the last day to table a motion of confidence if there is to be a general election before October the 31st. And as you know, and as all your listeners will know, the default is that on October the 31st we leave whether we have a deal in place or if we don't have a deal in place. So it is looking at the moment, given Jeremy Corbyn's reluctance to table a motion of confidence in the Prime Minister, or back a motion of confidence in the Prime Minister, as if a general election will come after we leave on October the 31st.
Interesting. Theo, we're going to find out. We've got 98 days to go. Thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Brendan in Nottingham. Brendan, we've got Boris Johnson now calling for the abolition of the backstop. Is this Trumpian politics or is it Johnson politics?
Well, to be honest, Nigel, putting aside the problem with Trump, obviously, so like Marmite, you love him or hate him. But one area I think that's really upset his opponents is he's actually done what he said he'd do.
I know.
And that's the biggest surprise so far. Most of the stuff he said he was going to do for America and in America is actually done. Yes. Now, if, for example, we can hold Johnson to that, and what Johnson has said doesn't turn out to be the usual codswallop that most British MPs pump out just to be popular, then he can be as Trump as he likes. Because the only part of Trump that I want Johnson to be is honest. I mean, in this country now, we seem to have got used to going to general elections and accepting that manifestos will not be honoured. It's like the main parties would agreed to honour the referendum result. They go back on that. They're two-timers, and
or they say, Brendan,
they all do that.
They'll cut net migration to tens of thousands, and they make the promises in manifestos without ever intending to carry them out. Brendan,
we need to start saying, and Johnson's got a wonderful, wonderful opportunity right now. If he actually does what he said he'd do, and I don't mean, I tried, whatever. Never mind, no matter what.
Brendan, I tell you what, he's
proof, not that he's given up.
He's marched the Conservative Party. He's marched them to the top of the hill. He's promised we're leaving with the 31st of October, and he has to deliver. If not, ruin faces them. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It is now 6:46 and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
The European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker has congratulated Boris Johnson on his appointment as Prime Minister, but reiterated the current Brexit deal is the best and only one possible, despite his demands for it to be changed. 4 teenage boys have been charged with a hate crime after a suspected homophobic attack on 2 women on a night bus in North London. And as Britain bakes on its second hottest day ever, there are major problems for people trying to get home this evening. Many train lines have speed restrictions and there's severe disruption at Liverpool Street and London Euston. LBC Weather. After the intense heat, widespread thunderstorms are now expected across northern and southeastern parts of the UK through tonight, a low of 15 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Katie Tyler. Major problems continue on the trains because of the hot weather, with most train lines running a reduced service. There is severe disruption to departures at Euston Station, with many services being cancelled, and there are also cancellations to services at King's Cross, with Midland trains suspended between St Pancras International and Bedford. On the tubes, there are severe delays on the Piccadilly line from Acton Town to Heathrow and Uxbridge, and on the roads, queues on the M25 clockwise approaching junction 21 for the M1 because of debris on the road.
This is LBC.
This year, an explorer descended almost 40,000 feet into the Pacific, breaking the record for the deepest ever dive. It's amazing what we can do when we think beyond limits. That's why Vodafone are giving small businesses what they need to reach their full potential with their new unlimited 5G data plans. Plus, with Rapid Insurance, get a replacement phone within 4 hours if something goes wrong. Go beyond limits and see what your business can achieve. Search Vodafone Business Unlimited.
There are few greater joys in life than a sumptuous hot bath. Time to let the stresses of the day just melt away. Unless your plumbing goes. That's a recipe for a meltdown. But Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable. So if you need a plumber or other professionals in their trade, just relax. Trusted Trader are only a click away.
Would you and your business benefit from a personal approach from your accountant? At Barnes Rofe, of course, our partners have the technical skills needed to offer you first-class audit, tax and accounting advice. But most importantly, we'll work closely with you to help your business grow long-term. Perhaps it's time to see what we can do for you. Arrange your free consultation at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business.
Switch to BT Business Broadband today and get connected tomorrow. Our most reliable broadband connection yet is backed by our 4G network and now comes with a fixed price guarantee, which means your connection won't go down and our prices won't go up. Whatever your business, go online and search BT Business Broadband to find out more. BT, be there. Subject to availability. Fixed price guarantee for your contract duration. T's and C's apply.
Introducing new TUI River Cruises. Choose from 19 European cruises, from meandering down the Danube to winding your way along the Rhine. Be immersed in local cultures with £120 excursions credit included per person. Enjoy activities from sightseeing with a local expert to tasting regional wines. Don't be a river cruiser, be a river explorer with TUI. We cross the T's, dot the I's and put you in the middle. £120 excursions credit is per person per 7-day sailing. Booking T's and C's apply. See website for details. At all protected.
Alexa, call Dave.
Calling Dave.
Yep. Guess what?
You got an Amazon Echo Plus from Vodafone for switching to their superfast home broadband, and now you're calling me with it.
Yeah, I did. Switch to Vodafone Unlimited Superfast Home Broadband and get an Amazon Echo Plus on us. Superfast One is only £21 a month for pay monthly mobile customers for 18 months, plus £9.99 router fee. Hurry, offer ends 13th of August. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone. Subject to credit check, acceptance and availability. Sequence shortened, Alexa calling to be enabled. Visit vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show, live from New York. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
I'm making the argument that Boris, to a certain extent, is copying Donald Trump's style. This is Trump.
America is the greatest place on earth.
And this is Prime Minister Johnson.
Making this country the greatest place on earth.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious, but some people disagree with that. Gail in Somerset says Boris has always been Boris. Him and Trump just happen to coincide with each other. Jennifer also disagrees with me and says our Prime Minister is not trying to be like President Trump. He is part American. Well, he was born in New York, that is true. And he has real backbone, something that has been totally missing in this country. Well done. Now, my next caller is a Texan who lives in Hartlepool, and we've spoken before. Kelly, hello there.
Hi, Nigel. Good evening. Are you having fun over there across the big pond?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good, and I enjoyed meeting Trump the other day, and I've been watching what's been happening back at home with fascination. And I think, you know, the caller earlier who said that Trump has sort of changed the landscape of politics in terms of what you can do as a leader. That's really the point here, Kelly, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is, and no, it isn't. I agree with you to the point that he is copycatting in some forms, but there's a big difference. President Trump will always be a businessman, where our Bojo will always be a politician. So I think that'll be the difference.
Or a journalist. I mean, Boris is a journalist first and foremost, isn't he?
Well, yes, he is, and I forget because I do read some of his stuff.
Okay, so they're fundamentally different as people. I get that. But what I'm saying, Kelly, is that in terms of style, the way Johnson did this today looked and sounded a bit like Trump.
I have to agree with you on that part, Nigel, because to me, I think what he's doing is he's taken after you and trying to grasp at straws to get pride brought back into the UK, because you have to admit the UK's been really downtrodden. And I do believe that he's trying to use that enthusiasm and those catchy phrases to pick everybody up. I do believe in that.
And the positivity, Kelly. One of the remarkable things, and of course I would say this, but one of the remarkable things about the 6-week run that the Brexit Party had to the European elections was we managed to pick up people who were really, really angry and felt betrayed by the two parties over Brexit, and we managed to turn that anger into hope. And I led a very, very upbeat, optimistic, positive campaign, and I think that worked, and I think the Conservatives have learned something from that.
I do, Nigel, and after I've watched the last 2 days in between all the bias on the different news agencies, but basically what I'm seeing is they are scared to death of our Brexit Party. They are scared, just like that guy Clive that was just on the phone with you a little bit earlier. Typical Fife. Typical. That's the reason why I had to move to England. They do not like anybody that does not support S&P, and that kind of grates on me. But we're all very important here in the UK, and the Brexit Party, to me, I will still get out here and I'll hand out flyers or whatever it takes, even though I can't legally vote in the general election. I'll do what I can because the Brexit Party is what is going to save the United Kingdom.
I think to a large extent we've already shifted the agenda. Brexit Party has changed this agenda, and it's easier for Boris to stand up and say these things. Kelly, as ever, a great thank you, and pointing out that not everybody in Scotland dislikes the English or are rude to them, just some that appear to be that way. Gary is a brand new caller to the show, and he is from Liverpool. Hi, Gary.
Hello, Nigel. Thank you for taking the call.
Not one bit. So what do you make of Prime Minister Johnson, then?
I think it sounded like somebody was in charge. Somebody had a bit of a plan. And I think he was trying to... people are confusing the enthusiasm he was trying to instill in the rest of us with the enthusiasm that Trump done. The same situation, kickstart the economy, kickstart the people, get the people behind what's actually happening. And I think we should open as much as we can. And I think they're like a Labour and they're going to wave Trump at them every time they open them out.
Corbyn set the tone for that today, didn't he?
He's not Trump. He's Boris Johnson. He's going to go there and do it because he knows if he doesn't do it, his legacy is going to be the obliteration of the Conservative Party. Everybody knows it. He knows it, and all he's got in his head is getting us out of there by the 31st, but it's gone.
The stakes are that high, Gary, aren't they?
They are. This is about democracy, Nigel. It's gone way past politics. It's, do we live in a country where we get dictated to by people, or where we explain to people what we want, have a vote on it, and proceed forward that way? It's called democracy. Real simple. One man, one vote. Everyone's the same. Whatever we agree, that's what it is at the end of it. They're breaking democracy, and they're prepared to break it to get what they want.
Gary, I agree with you. Absolutely, fully and totally. Love the passion of the call. Thank you. Please do come back to us again. Now, Olivia from the New Forest says, Nigel, you're right. Surely Jacob must be a future Prime Minister himself. I hope so. What was Mrs May doing not to recognise him as an asset? Because, Olivia, she didn't think he was an asset. She thought he was a threat because Boris actually believed in, because Jacob actually believed in Brexit, and Mrs May didn't believe in Brexit. Until, of course, the third time that wretched treaty came back to the House of Commons, when both Jacob and Boris voted for it, something I still am failing to understand. Pete is another new caller, and he's calling from Valencia in Spain. Hi, Pete.
Hey, Nigel. Thank you for the call. The first thing I'd like to say, I think we've got a problem. Because it's warmer in Barnsley than it is in Barcelona.
And Pete,
so
are you
on
holiday, Pete, or are you on holiday from Barnsley?
No, I had to move to Spain after medical problems, but that's another story. Listen, Boris and Mr. Trump.
Yes.
You cannot compare the two men because it's the mindset of the person. Donald Trump is a outright businessman. He's built his future and his empire by himself. He decided to take the path on his deals and on his construction deals that he made. And he has a different mindset because at the end of the month, when Donald Trump said, "How much is in the tin, darling?" And they said, OK, there's $3 million. Well, he created that.
Yeah.
The problem you've got with Boris Johnson is not come from that background at the end of the month when he says how much to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, how much is in the tin. And he says £3 million from the slaves of Slavelandia.
I get the point. Trump is an entrepreneur. Trump is used to succeeding or failing on his own decisions. Trump is very decisive. He looks at something and instinctively says yes or no. Boris, actually, when it comes to making big decisions, I've seen him to be a bit of a ditherer. But maybe, Pete, he'll be different as Prime Minister. I don't know. I thank you for your call. I thank all of you for your call. I'm going to be back on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock with Stanley Johnson, the father of Boris. So please listen then. At 10 o'clock tonight, it's Warbrick, but up next, it's Ian Dale.
Nigel, thank you very much. Well, today, Michel Barnier sent a note to EU ambassadors saying that the EU will not reopen negotiations on the withdrawal agreement or have any discussions about altering or abolishing the Irish backstop. He says that by upping Britain's preparedness for a no-deal Brexit, Britain is trying to split the EU 27, yet it seems it's okay for the EU to make the very same preparations. Will this new hardline stance by Boris Johnson and the British government yield results, or are we now inevitably heading for no deal? Also at 9, Boris Johnson today reiterated his view that there should be an amnesty for 500,000 illegal immigrants who've been here for years. He says the economic advantages and disadvantages should be examined, but he himself is in